is that we have teachings, for example, that a dream is 1/60th of prophecy, right? We have sleep is 1/60th of death. A dream is 1/60th of prophecy. These are what our sages spoke about. These same sages, by the way. Right? So, interestingly enough, when you tap into your intuition, you are basically tapping into, or on the way, you start being on the way, tapping into 1/60th of prophecy, or in general, having prophecy, right? We don't have prophecy anymore. We lost it, right? With basically, I think it was 1800 years ago, prophecy went away from the world, right? We lost our temple, we lost the second temple. We know we're going to get a third one back. When we get the third one back, actually, there was a rabbi, a chief rabbi of Israel, before the state was founded. Not getting into politics, but guys, I don't know if you know this, Jewish people were in Israel before 1948, for years and years. And we even had a chief rabbi. His name was Rabbi Yitzhak HaKohen Kook. And he spoke about how prophecy, nevuah, would come back into the world. The closer and closer and closer we get to the redemption, prophecy would start coming back into the world. He specifically was referring to Jews, how Jews would start getting their, so to speak, prophecy back. Excuse me. Their groove back. And we see now that people today are, tapping into their intuition. We see, for example, guys, we have in our nation today, and this is something that I have experienced specifically, and I don't even, for the longest time, I've been wondering why I experienced it. I for some reason, have come across probably 10 or 11, maybe even 12 people. In Hebrew, they're called Mekubalim, Kabbalists, people who are who have the ability to see certain things. You come to them with I don't know, your name, let's say your Hebrew name, your birthday, and we're not talking about astrology here. We're not talking about astrological signs or anything like that. But you come to them with your Hebrew name, your birthday, different things. You ask them a question. You want to get a blessing from them. You ask them a question. You ask them advice on certain things, business, marriage, relationships, family, etc., etc. In my experience, sometimes they're spot on. Sometimes they say certain things, or kind of by way of advice, that throw off, your intuition, or things that fly in the face of what your intuition tells you. Like, for example, in my case, I've gone to them to confirm things that I already felt, right? Why? Because some, we don't always trust our intuition. It was at the times in my life where I was like, well, I'm feeling something here, or I'm sensing something here, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe I'm overblowing it. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm too, what do they call it? Too sensitive, right? And then I go to this person, one of these people, whether it's in Israel here, and they tell me, hey, about this such and such person that I'm dealing with, and my suspicions were confirmed, right? And they tell me even more stuff that I didn't even know sometimes, which I won't get into. But sometimes I've had these people tell me stuff that flies against my intuition, and I've actually gone ahead and done those things, and it led to disastrous results, right? So it can throw you off, right? I didn't want to get on this topic too much, but my point is, my friends, that we have such people. We have such people in our nation, people who have been able to tap in. Now you might be asking, Tzvi, how they tapped into this? Were they born with it? Some of these people were born with it. They have what's called a Masorah. They have a tradition from their family, rabbis, their parents, their grandparents, etc., etc. Going back to, again, Israel and all the way back to our sages and even before that, right? These are family lineages that go way, way back to the times of the temples. Some of these people were born with something. They don't necessarily have a lineage, and they developed it. How did they develop it? By learning Torah. Not just learning what we call the 5 books of Moses, but learning all facets of the Torah. And doing only that. And then on top of that, doing what I'm doing right now, for example, going outside, going into, let's say a forest or a field, and just talking to God, literally talking to Hashem in your own language. In your own language means not something that's set down by, not something out of a book, something out of a prayer book or what we call a Siddur, which we do have, by the way. Sets of prayers or sets of, in Hebrew it's called bakashot, which is really things that the entire nation, meaning individuals, say it, but these are national prayers or national requests. Let's put it that way. And they're more of like, I want to say, reflexive manifestations. Let's put it that way. It's interesting. I'll leave that for another video. So, personal prayer, hours of it, like hours and hours and hours. As one of my rabbis likes to say, hours and hours of hitbodedut. In Hebrew, it's called hitbodedut. Boded means alone or by yourself. Hitbodedut means literally prayer by yourself, or alone prayer, or prayer while alone in the field somewhere, right? Like, for example, we have lone soldiers, people who come from the diaspora to come, be in the IDF. It's called Hayal Boded, lone soldier, right? So hitbodedut, personal prayer, or alone, or isolated, or secluded prayer. Okay. So this is how they managed to tap in, and they managed to tap into something that's, listen, I don't even know if it's 1/60th yet, but it's interesting, guys, right? When you notice when you have dreams, for example, again, I mentioned dreams are 1/60th of prophecy. When you've had dreams, you've had dreams of things. Sometimes those things happened, or some permutation, or some version, or maybe a different, what's called, how should I put this? A different version of that dream happened in real life. Or if you ever watch, movies, or you buy a DVD version of a movie, and they have like the selected cuts, or they have the alternate. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Alternate version or alternate ending of the dream. There we go. That's the lashon I was looking for. So your real life, whatever happens in real life, could be an alternate version of something you dreamt. So that is that's your dream. If you have a dream like that, that's literally 1/60th of prophecy, or maybe just shy of that, right? Because you get an alternate version. Sometimes we have nights where we don't dream at all, right? And it seems like our consciousness is wiped out completely. There's nothing, right? So they say, sleep is 1/60th of death, right? So, without getting too much into it, guys, and I don't want to get into the morbid topic, but our sages tell us that when we leave this world, there's a certain period of time where our consciousness is temporarily not there, right? As we transition into the next world, our consciousness is a certain period of time, or what seems like period of time, because there really is no time in the next world, right? There's no concept of time. There's no concept of the passage of time. So, again, you notice when you sleep, sometimes you have these nights when you don't dream anything at all. You don't have any consciousness whatsoever, not in this world or in the dream world. You're just out, like a light, right? and then some hours later you wake up and you're like, man, where, was I even alive? By the way, guys, this is precisely why in the Jewish liturgy we have something called, and I'm talking to myself right now because I haven't said this prayer in a long time, and this is one of the first prayers I used to say when I first became religious, called Kriyat Shema al Amitah, the bedtime prayer, I guess, the prayer before you go to sleep. And it's not like, what you guys are thinking of, Christian prayer where you get down on your knees next to your bed and you just, by the way, that's more personal prayer. But we're talking about a set prayer that our sages set down, where we, first of all, we declare that God is one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And then it gets into a whole thing of basically where we are asking Hashem to protect our souls, our neshamot, when we're asleep, right? Because what happens when we're asleep? Part of our souls, not our entire souls, but part of our souls leave our bodies and they go into a different realm. Again, which is why sometimes we it seems like we don't have any consciousness for a few hours. Sometimes we have these dreams, prophetic dreams, whatever they are. I can tell you guys, when I was first becoming religious, this was probably the first thing and only thing that I was doing on a regular basis. It just resonated with me because I was just having these, it's hard for me to sleep. I would wake up with anxiety. I mentioned this to my friend on the podcast. I would wake up with anxiety, and this is the only thing that really, alleviated any of that, is when I said this prayer every single night, this set prayer. If those of you guys want to know where you can find it, just type in bedtime Shema, bedtime, and then SHEMA or SHMA, or nighttime Shema, and it'll give you the whole liturgy. You can find it in English, I think, of this prayer. And yeah, so where was I going with all this? I don't even know. No. So in reality, we're tapping into a small portion of prophecy. Again, the closer we get to the redemption, and we are very, very close. I don't know if you guys noticed all the stuff that our sages spoke about in, the specifically, prophets really, Yehezkel, Ezekiel, Zechariah, all the stuff with regards to everything that's going on with Israel and Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas and everything that's going on in America with anti-Semitism and the economy and this and that and culture and the destruction of culture, the destruction of the family and I don't know, the confusion. In Hebrew it's called midbalbel, the confusion of the people identifies this and identifies that. If you guys ever see the episode, I'll tell you two things from Family Guy. There's one episode, if you guys could check both of them out on YouTube, where it's like they have like a Ricky Lake type show, and then there's like a man and a woman, and then the woman's like, Diane, I have to tell you something. I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not a woman, I'm a horse, right? And then she goes, I'm not a horse, I'm a broom. I'm not a broom, and it just keeps going like that, right? So people today identify as a horse, as a broom, as whatever they want. There's another episode where, this is 20 years ago, guys, 20 years ago, where Chris comes to Peter, Chris the son, he's not terribly bright, he comes to Peter and he goes, Dad, can you teach me how to do math? You help me with my math homework? And then Peter's like, Math, my dear boy, and is nothing more than the lesbian sister of biology. Folks, 20 years ago, that was a joke. Okay? I'm just going to leave it at that. 20 years ago, it was a joke. It was funny, and it was a joke. And it wasn't real. 25 years ago, it wasn't real. Okay? Today, different story. So, without getting into politics too much, our sages and our prophets spoke about this moment. We understand that we're getting closer and closer to something, right? And I'm not the only one that says this. And so because, or in conjunction with getting closer and closer to something, we are also seeing that people are seeking spirituality. Specifically, they are looking to tap into their intuition. They're looking to tap into, what are they feeling at any given moment? And I don't mean feeling as in like, only emotions. I spoke about this yesterday. Don't just use your emotion, use your brain. But your intuition is comprised of your senses, or your sixth sense, combined with using your wisdom or chachma, or your brain, for discernment. Again, the mind controls the heart. In Hebrew, it's called dat. Loosely translated as knowledge, but not really. So we're getting closer and closer to that moment. People are waking up to it. So now, because there are a lot of people waking up to it, you're also going to have a lot of people in contrast, or you're going to have entire segments of society. You guys, in the YouTube world, you guys call it low vibration. People who are just basically turned off, right? Some of you guys use the term NPCs. You think that those people are, you say that those people are NPCs, non-player characters. Guys, I'm here to tell you, and my friend Frank and I did an entire episode about this, where I asked the question, it seems like people are NPCs. He told me no. Those people are not, they're not NPCs, because they can be turned on, they can be awakened, so to speak, in any moment, right? Everybody has the microchip to be awakened at any moment. So in reality, there is no such thing as an NPC in reality. Because Hashem, God, we understand that every person was created what's called B'Tselem Elokim. God doesn't allow an extra person to come into this world unless He decrees that that person, that soul, that neshama, whether it's an old neshama, parts of an old neshama, parts of an old one, and parts of a new one, or a completely new one. We have this idea of old souls or brand new, newly what's called minted souls. No one comes into this world unless God decrees it so. Now you could say, well, look at all these people who are they look like extras. My friends, they seem to you like extras, but little do you know that they are the main character in their story, right? And you're the extra. How's that? On top of that, guys, it could very well be that in God's eye, or in God's view, we're all NPCs, right? We're all non-player characters. And He's the only player. That's a different conversation. So, but with that said, we see how pronounced the contrast is between those of us who kind of see what's going on and those of us who don't, who live in kind of a little bit of a alternative reality, or a bubble, or kind of just, it just seems like people are pretending like everything's okay, right? Me and my friends and I speak about this all the time, like what we just went through with COVID, for example, right? And everything that was done to us, and all the, I'm not going to use the word torture, but all the sinister stuff that was done. And now that it's, so to speak, over, right, at least for the time being, everybody just forgot about it. Everybody just pretends like it never happened. Everybody forgot about, well, not everybody, but a lot of people forgot about who did this to them and why it was done, and taking anybody who did this, any of this, to task, criminal prosecution, etc., etc., facing any consequences. It just seems like people are just like, okay, back to normal, back to reality, back to normal. I don't know, back to the life that we thought we had. And now you have wars. Guys, by the way, you understand that this is a cycle of history. Christianity likes to call it, the horses of the apocalypse, right? So two of them are, and they usually happen in succession. First you have pandemics, then you have wars. Orchestrated, folks. Orchestrated. This is how this is orchestrated. By whomever orchestrates it. I'm not even going to get into the fact that we may have another one. Pandemic, right? It's a different story. They're already talking about it. But different conversation. Guys, the point is, more and more people are seeking to connect and seeking to connect to their intuition, seeking to kind of notice or see or open their eyes to what's going on. And the more people do that, the more the people who aren't doing that, the more pronounced this, chasm or this contrast will be. But I'm going to end off with this. What does that mean? Our sages tell us that before the greatest light, we're going to have the greatest darkness. What does that mean? That means that it's going to be so dark that people are not even going to know it's dark. There's going to be, they're not even going to know that there's what to connect to. But once they do connect, their spiritual growth could be, could be parabolic, could be exponential, right? It is exponential. You see, like a person, for example, guys, like I'm coming from the world of people who didn't grow up religious and who became religious later in life, and you see it all the time, guys, and I include myself in this, right? Guys who all of a sudden, you see them, they go to yeshiva, they go to, like a learning center for a Torah learning center, let's say for men or even for women, and about it, you see them, right? You see them like at the time that they enter, and then you don't see them for like a year, and you bump into them like a year later, a year and a half later, and it's just like the person knows like half the Torah, and then he's like basically a sage, right? I'm not saying everybody, that happens to everybody, but I've seen guys like this, right? It means that there's so much accessible wisdom today, and there's so much light. If you want it, you can, and now that we have the internet, and now that we have all these books available, and all these teachers, and all, if you want it, you can find it if you want it. That the growth is exponential because of all the growth that happened, and all of the teaching, and all of the learning that happened in the previous 2,000 years. It's all available to us. It's all available to us. It's all accessible to us. It's all been translated, even though these translations do not do the original language Hebrew justice. We can have exponential growth. Why? Because our starting point is so low. We're a very, very low generation. We have a concept in Judaism called Yeridat Hadorot, the decline of the generations. Every generation is lower than the previous one. For example, the sages, the Chazal that I mentioned, are lower than the prophets, right? And then they're, the generation after them, even though compared to us they're very, very high, lower than them, and then lower and lower and lower and lower until you get to us. My friends, we today, our generation, and I'm talking about, doesn't matter if you're Jewish or not Jewish, it's clear we don't have any more leaders, like real leaders. The last leader we had, like real leader we had in the Jewish world, for example, was the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And I'm not saying this, he was a leader for all Jews, no matter if you were Chabad or not Chabad. After him, we have Torah scholars, we have very, very big Torah scholars and rabbis, but we don't have a person or people that everybody in the Jewish world comes to and says, okay, this person can guide me, this person can advise me, right? We don't have that anymore. We are rudderless, which means that we're at the lowest point, but because we're at the lowest point, we have the ability, again, if we want, if we seek it out, it's all there on the internet. One of my rabbis even says, the redemption is going to come through the internet, meaning it's going to be broadcast. How are you going to broadcast that the redemption is here simultaneously all over the world, right? Everybody thought it was going to be through TV. No, now you could do it. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody whips out their phone and they see Mashiach is, Messiah is talking to them simultaneously, right? Hey, I'm here. He's saying. So, I'm getting off on tangents. I apologize. So, because we're so low, we have the ability to have exponential growth. Just the one day I'm making a video. See guys, I spoke about this yesterday. The Sitra Achra doesn't want me to speak. We have the ability to tap into exponential growth in spirituality. And not only that, we have the ability to tap into some sliver 1/60th of prophecy, which is the still small voice that I mentioned. And that's basically it. If we want it. If we want it. All it takes is wanting it. So I guess that's all I wanted to speak to you guys about today. Just this concept of, whatever we see around us is coming back. Of course, with that coming back, we're going to get a lot of old, by the way, you see it. Parallel to what I just described, we have the entertainment world, Hollywood, all these what I call gnostic fruitcakes, who are parallel to what I just described to you guys, are bringing back the old teachings of, ancient Egypt and Babylon and Greece and Rome, which are tapping into dark energies and what's called the Sitra Achra. They've brought them back. They brought them back into popular culture, or they use those teachings to manipulate popular culture and to normalize the things that I mentioned to you guys. All this, I'm a horse, I'm a broom, I'm a this, I'm a that. Guys, this is nothing new. This is from ancient Rome. And you could say, well, Tzvi, don't they know history? Don't they know that their thing, is the thing that causes the downfall of civilizations? Don't they understand that they're not going to remake the civilization into what they want it to be? They're just going to tear it down. First of all, some of them want to tear it down, and the ones that don't want to tear it down, the ones that think that they're doing good, the ones that think that they're the good guys, right? Folks, again, read the story of the Tower of Babel. They did not say God is not real. They said God is real, and we are going to build a tower to get up to him, and we are going to fight him. Because, how dare this omnipotent, all-knowing God tell us what to do? We're here, humans. We're the ones building. We're the ones doing. But, we have to follow his instructions. We have to be shackled. What was the war? Essentially, World War II. What was Hitler's whole thing? We are going to remove humanity from the shackles that, the Jews gave to the world. It wasn't really, it was the Jews by way of Moses, by way of God. God said, here are some commandments, here's morality. For the Gentiles, it's 7 laws of Noah. Even that he couldn't follow, this Hitler guy, right? This Hitler guy. So he had actually a problem with two things. He said the Jews gave the world 2 blemishes: conscience, what I just described, and Brit Milah, circumcision. That's a whole different conversation. So guys, that's what's happening. Parallel to what we're doing and what we're tapping into, you have these fruitcakes who are tapping into that, and they are, by virtue of that, they are, or by way of that, they are destroying the world. What they don't realize is they're not going to win. Maybe they know they're not going to win. Maybe they're just on an automatic, path of. It's funny. I was just watching this guy. He's an African young guy. He has I think he has a Instagram and he has a YouTube channel. He's very funny, and he's talking like he's doing this thing. There's a lot of people now doing this, imitating their immigrant parents, like doing all these skits, right? So he goes, when your African father reprimands you about something. So he does the voice of his African father. You are going down the path of destruction. The beating you'll receive will be tantalizing. So these people, folks, they're already, I'm sorry, I was just thinking about this guy. They're going back already on the path of destruction. And they know it and they can't stop. It's almost like they're programmed to do it. It's almost like they're already on that path and there's no going back for them. And we see it. And they will lose. But in the process, in that whole process, we have to remember, we have to stay on our path consciously with our free will. Not because we're automatically programmed to do it, but because we are exercising our free will to tap into something inside of us already. We just have to activate it. It's almost like a microchip that's there, and we have to call. It's like you call up a file, or you bring up a file on your computer that's been sitting there dormant. So there's ways to do it. Our sages knew about it. We forgot about it, unfortunately, but we're slowly remembering it. Tzat Hashem. Guys, I hope I wasn't too much all over the place, and if I was, listen, this is what. Again, that's another thing. You should trust that Hashem gave you the words that you said, that came out of your mouth. And trust that these words are not extra, let's put it that way. So, alright guys, anyway, that's my 33-minute, that's another significant number, rant, and I will talk to you soon.